Welcome to the Explainer. We often think of conflict as something to avoid, right? But today, we're going to flip that on its head. We're going to explore how the toughest, most difficult conflicts can actually be the very thing that sparks breakthrough innovation.
We're all taught that progress comes from harmony, from everyone just getting along. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the real creative juice, that spark we're all looking for, actually comes from friction, from that tension when different ideas collide?
All right, to really get this, let's look at a story from the auto industry. Picture this. It's 1975, and a new government mandate lands on the desks of car makers, and it forces them into a really tough choice. A choice that creates what seems like a total paradox. So, right out of the gate, it was a classic trade-off. You can see it right here on this chart. If you wanted better gas mileage, you had to give up horsepower. Look at that downward trend from 75 into the early 80s. It's super clear. That's what a scarcity mentality looks like. It's an or problem. You can have fuel economy or you can have power, but you can't have both. But here's where it gets interesting. That exact conflict, that or problem, it lit a fire under the engineers. It forced them to get creative, to rethink everything. And this is when we started seeing things like turbocharging, brand new lightweight alloys, way more efficient engines, even the very first ideas for hybrids. You see? The friction was literally forcing them to innovate. And bam, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Look at how that curve just swings way up and to the right. Fast forward to today, and our cars have incredible gas mileage and way more horsepower than ever before. They didn't just compromise, they completely shattered the original trade-off. They turned an or into an and. Okay, that's a fantastic question, because let's be real, engineering problems are one thing. But human problems, they are so much messier, right? It's not just about physics. You've got values, you've got fears, you've got trust, or a lack of it. So, with that in mind, let's dive into a really complex, real-world case that feels exactly like one of those impossible human problems. We're talking about the Iowa Water Quality Challenge. Okay, so here's the setup. You've got 4 key groups, and they all need the same water, but for totally different reasons. You have farmers who, need to protect their crop yields and just stay in business. Then you have residents who just want safe, affordable water coming out of their taps. You've got the water utilities who have this legal obligation to meet super strict regulations. And then there are the policymakers, right? They're stuck in the middle, trying to somehow balance the state's economy with protecting the environment. And what happens? Well, you get this classic us versus them standoff. Everybody's dug in. They're all seeing the same river, but they're not seeing the same problem at all. It just feels impossible. So where on earth do you even start? Well, you start with a process, a structured one. Instead of just getting in a room and arguing, innovators use this really powerful framework from the world of design thinking to find a path through this exact kind of mess. At its heart, design thinking isn't about getting rid of disagreement. It's the opposite. It gives you the tools and, more importantly, the mindset to actually harness all that friction and turn what feels like a hopeless division into a collaborative hunt for a much better answer. And the way it works is by deliberately switching between 2 ways of thinking. Think of it like a lens. First, you zoom out. That's divergence. You go super wide to explore every possible angle. Then you zoom in. That's convergence. You get focused, you analyze, you synthesize, and you make a sharp decision. And this is basically the map for that whole journey. It's called the double diamond. It walks you through 2 really distinct phases. That first diamond is all about one thing, deeply, truly understanding the problem. And only then do you move to the second diamond, which is all about creating the right solution. Now, this is absolutely crucial. You have to solve the right problem before you even start thinking about building the right solution. It's a classic mistake to jump ahead. So for now, we're going to focus completely on that first diamond, the problem space. Okay, this is where the magic really starts to happen. This is the part where you shift the entire conversation away from what people say they want, their stated positions, to what they actually truly need in order to be successful. So in that first discover stage, you're going wide again, remember? You use a tool like this one, the Jobs to be Done canvas, to really build empathy. You stop asking, so what's your position on this? And you start asking every single person, what are you trying to get done here? What does a real win look like for you? And when you start to synthesize all those conversations, something amazing happens. You start to find these criteria for success that everyone actually shares. But, and this is so important, you also see how much each one matters to each group. Look at this. Economic viability is 100% non-negotiable for the farmer, but for the utility company, yeah, it's important, but for them, meeting government regulations is their 100%. So after all that work, diverging to understand and then converging to define, that messy, polarized fight in Iowa starts to get crystal clear. It boils down to these 6 concrete, measurable goals that every single person in that room could agree on. This is the aha moment. You've gone from fighting over positions to having a shared definition of what a great outcome looks like for everyone. And with that kind of clarity, with a shared scoreboard everyone can look at, the whole dynamic just shifts. Now you can move from looking for some weak, watered-down compromise to actually designing a powerful, synergistic solution. And believe me, this distinction is everything. A compromise? Well, that's what you get when you try to avoid conflict. It's usually the least bad option that nobody really loves. But synergy? Synergy is what happens when you lean into that conflict and find a totally new, better solution that actually meets the core needs of every single stakeholder. It's the best option. And with those shared criteria, you can now rigorously test any idea. We call it the and test. Does our new solution improve water safety and protect farming viability and build trust? If you can't put a checkmark in every single one of those boxes, then it's not a real innovation. It's just another compromise, and it's time to go back to the drawing board.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway here? How can you actually apply this kind of thinking to those really complex, stuck challenges that you're facing in your own world?
Well, here it is. The big idea is to stop seeing conflict as a problem you have to avoid. Instead, start seeing it as the raw energy for creativity, and then use a disciplined framework, something like the double diamond, to channel that energy and turn an or problem into a true and breakthrough. And that's our explainer for today. So we'll leave you with this question to chew on. What's the biggest or problem in your organization, in your life, that just might be an and opportunity waiting to be discovered?